A mass of desperate survivors arrive at the gates of the Rosarita Beach Hotel after noticing the neon sign that Madison had been flashing the previous night. Madison, Alicia, Elena, Oscar and Hector stand guard, refusing to let them in. Madison spots Travis in the crowd and struggles to let him in. In a recent flashback, James is writhing in agony after a farmer shot him in the leg in the barn. A farmer lies dead on the ground after being fatally shot by Chris. Travis orders Brandon, Derek, and Chris to stop James bleeding while he searches for something to sew up the wound. Travis runs to the farmhouse and finds gauze, scissors, and sewing supplies. Travis stitches up the entrance wound, then turns James over to sew up the exit wound. James screams in pain. Travis assures the band that James will get better over time. Travis buries the farmer next to his family and makes a cross for the tombstone. Brendan, Derek and Chris are laughing by the campfire, eating chicken and beer. Travis checks on James and asks him to rate his pain on a scale of 1 to 10. James hesitates to admit his pain in front of his friends. Travis asks James to let him know if his condition worsens. Travis takes the unrepentant Chris aside and reproaches him for killing the farmer and having no remorse. Chris defends his actions and warns Travis to be careful when dealing with Brandon's team. "We need them," he says. In the present, Madison opens the gate for Travis, but does not let the other survivors in. TV's looks dejectedly at the ocean from the hotel balcony and asks Madison where Nick is. Madison replies that Nick has run away and then asks where Chris is. Travis is sitting on the bed, overwhelmed by emotions. "I had no choice," he says. A week has passed at the farm, and Brandon announces that they are moving to a new place. Travis claims that James is not healthy enough, but James insists that he is fine and can go on a trip. Derek says they're going to San Diego. Travis repeats that San Diego was destroyed and asks Chris to support him, but Chris says that they never actually went to San Diego. Travis finds the farmer's driver's license and carves the farmer on the tombstone with it. Chris tells him that the band is waiting for him to leave. Travis snaps at Chris and orders them to wait. Travis helps the others carry James into the truck. James winces, but says he's fine. However, when they start driving, the pain becomes unbearable. James begs Travis not to tell Brandon, and then passes out. Travis orders Brandon to stop. That evening, Travis overhears Brandon, Derek, and Chris discussing James' murder. Chris points out that James is not getting better. Travis insists that he will get better over time and that they will be able to stay in the farmhouse long enough for him to recover. He grabs Chris's gun and refuses to let him hit James. Travis guards James and informs him that his friends want to kill him. James explains that they had a friend, Troy, who got infected and made them promise to kill him before he turned. However, when the time came, Troy changed his mind. James says he apologized to Troy before killing him. Travis says it's a different matter because James isn't dying, but James insists it doesn't matter as long as they think he's dying. The next morning, Chris brings Travis food to the barn and says he's afraid of Brandon and Derek. Travis assures him that everything will be fine. They're hugging. Chris takes advantage of the moment and attacks Travis, pinning him to the ground. Brandon and Derek run in. Brandon shoots James, despite the latter's pleas for mercy. Later, Brandon and Derek load the truck. Travis, who has stayed, desperately begs Chris to stay with him. Chris says that he will be better off without Travis, and claims that he has adapted to the new world, but Travis has not. He leaves the farm with Brandon and Derek. Travis buries James and then goes to the desert. Returning to the present, Travis ends his story by saying that he spent 2 days searching for the ocean before he saw the lights of the hotel. Madison assures Travis that he had no choice and reminds him that Chris is still at large. Travis regrets not telling Chris that he loved him when they broke up. Madison is holding his hand. Madison goes to the garage and finds it filled with survivors. Andres explains that they have let in 43 survivors and are examining them for infection. Behind the curtain, Alicia examines the woman for bites. Madison takes her for a walk. At the pier, Madison tells Alicia that the car accident her father got into was actually a suicide. Alicia is stunned by the news and asks what was written in the suicide note. "I love you all, that's enough," says Madison. She explains that she never told Alice and Nick because she wanted to protect Nick, who she worried might become like his father. She says the only reason she paid less attention to Alicia over the years was because she thought she was doing fine. They're hugging. That evening, a small group of survivors arrive at the hotel gates, including Brandon and Derek. Ophelia's truck breaks down in the Mexican desert. While she is checking the engine, she is attacked by a group of infected. Ophelia kills several, but when he sees the approaching herd, he runs away. In the middle of the night, Nick sneaks out of Luciana's bed and meets Reynold. They sneak into the infirmary and steal OxyContin. In the light of day, they pass through the bus from the colony to deliver Mark's drugs. Travis wakes up in Madison's hotel room. She tries to calm him down about leaving Chris and invites him to join the rest of the group downstairs. Nick and Reynaldo arrive at El Policana and tell Antonio that they need to talk to Mark. Alicia brings Travis food. He admits that Chris is sick and apologizes for not believing and protecting her when she said Chris threatened her. Nick gives Mark OxyContin, but Mark says he no longer needs their supplies. He tells Nick that he has teamed up with a more powerful gang and plans to take over the colony. Nick asks what will happen to the residents, but Mark doesn't care. To prove this, the stamp shows the executed bodies of Francis, his wife and daughter. He advises Nick to leave the colony immediately if he wants to live. Madison checks on Alicia, who is taking care of the survivors in the garage. Alicia expresses her disdain for Brandon and Derek, who loudly neglect Mexican patients and complain about Brandon's dislocated shoulder. Madison tries to calm Brandon and Derek down. She asks what happened and finds out that Brandon injured his shoulder in a car accident after they allowed their 16-year-old companion, a guy from Los Angeles, to drive without a license. They say the driver died in an accident. Madison guesses that these are the very people Chris has teamed up with. Madison tells Tren that Brandon and Derek are in the garage and that she suspects Chris is dead. Tren dissuades her from telling Travis about this, as it will destroy the only thing that makes him continue to live. This is the same hope that Tren lost after Thomas's death. Madison agrees that the news about Chris will break Travis. Nick informs Luciana that Mark's gang is going to attack the colony, and apologizes for sneaking out. In the infirmary, Nick and Luciana inform Alexander about Mark's impending attack. Nick urges Alejandra to leave the colony immediately. The discussion is interrupted by the patient who applied. The infected person attacks him, and during the ensuing scuffle, Alejandra and 2 other people get bitten. Nick kills the infected by penetrating his fingers through the eyeballs into the brain. Alejandra looks at the bite on her hand, but assures Nick and Luciana that he will be fine. Ophelia walks along the fence at the Mexican-American border and finds a hole. She's moving to America. Residents of the colony city say goodbye to infected victims of the infirmary, who offer themselves to the herd in the yard. Nick tells Luciana that he is worried about Alejandro. She assures him that Alejandro's faith will heal him. In the garage, Madison tells Brandon that Anders will need privacy to heal his shoulder. As they see Brendan and Derek off, other survivors complain that the Americans are taking advantage. The crowd becomes uncontrollable. Travis hears a commotion outside and sees a crowd of survivors chasing Madison as she escorts Brandon and Derek to the gate. He runs out into the street and demands to know where Chris is. Nick packs a bag into the trailer and tells Luciana that they have to leave, refusing to believe that Faith will protect them from Mark's gang. Alejandra comes in. Nick orders Alejandra to tell Luciana his secret. Alejandra admits that he has no immunity to infected bites, explaining that the bite on his neck was actually from a boy he was trying to save, not from an infected one. Lucian is stunned by the news. Nick begs Luciana to come with him. She refuses, saying that the colony is her home. Ophelia wanders through the desert and hides for cover when someone starts shooting at her. A man armed with a machine gun discovers her hiding behind a tree. "Welcome to America," he says. Travis and Madison take Brandon and Derek to the hotel cafe. After Andres fixed Brandon's arm, Travis asks them about Chris. They explain that they were tired, fleeing from bandits, and Chris offered to get behind the wheel of a truck so they could sleep. When he turned off the road, the truck rolled, Chris was thrown out of it, and he died from the impact. Travis asks where Chris was buried, and Derek says they pulled him out of the wrecked car and buried him under a tree. However, Travis notices a discrepancy in these two stories. He locks Madison and Oscar in a cafe and begins to sort things out with Brandon and Derek, demanding the truth. Brandon admits that Chris survived the accident, but suffered a leg injury, so they shot him on the road. "We should have," he begs. Enraged by his son's death, Travis brutally beats Brandon and Derek, smashing their heads and breaking their limbs. During this, Oscar tries to intervene, but Travis slams the door, causing him severe injuries. He sinks to the floor, exhausted. Travis sits in a daze on the floor of the hotel cafe after the murders of Brandon and Derek. Hector and Elena pull Travis away and take Oscar away, who is unconscious after Travis attacked him to prevent him from intervening. Madison tries to protect Travis, but Elena points out that he killed 2 men and severely wounded Oscar. Madison returns to the cafe and stabs Brandon and Derek in the head with a knife. Luciana bandages the wound from Alejandro's bite. He tells her he's dying. She orders him to lie to the townspeople to keep their faith. Trend tries to dissuade Madison from speaking out in defense of Travis, whom Elena wants to expel. Alicia and Madison decide to leave the hotel with Travis. STD refuses to join them. Madison tells Elena that they will leave with Travis in the morning and asks her to release Travis from captivity. Elena feels that she is in debt to Madison, and allows her to do so, despite Hector's reluctance. Madison enters the playroom where Travis is locked and tells him that she and Alicia will leave with him in the morning. Nick begs Luciana to leave the colony with him. "We will meet our fate," she says. "Do what you're doing, Nick." Andres treats Oscar, who is still unconscious. Alicia offers to help. He tells her that he has to remove part of Oscar's skull to reduce the swelling and orders her to leave. Alejandro warns the townspeople that people are coming to kill them, but their faith will protect them. "We will not die today," he declares. Meanwhile, Nick leaves the colony. Walking along a road in Tijuana, smeared with the blood of infected people, he notices a helicopter landing in the distance. Andres is drilling Oscar's head, and Elena and Hector are standing next to each other. That evening, Madison joins Travis on the balcony of their hotel room and assures him that Brandon and Derek deserve their fate. She says she also killed a man, Celia, to protect Nick. Oscar is dying on the operating table. Andres clenches his fist in anger. Hector sobs and shouts to Elena that Travis is safe and sound upstairs. Elena reminds him that they made a deal with Madison. Hector and Andres break into Travis' room and beat him up. Andres presents a gun to Travis' head. Alicia stabs Andres with a knife, and a fight begins. Trend snatches the gun from Andres and orders everyone out. "We need to run," he says. Travis, Madison and Alicia get into the hotel car. Trend gives the gun to Madison and stays behind. Travis accelerates and drives into the gate. Nick returns to the colony and goes to Alejandra in his trailer. Nick says he saw the helicopter land at the camp near the border, and asks Alejandra to give the residents permission to escape. Nick says he and Luciana can lead the residents north. Madison, Travis and Alicia go to El Pelican in search of Nick. They discover the bodies of Francis' family in the backyard of an empty market with bullet wounds in the head. They find Francis' driver's license with the address of the colony. The next day, Mark and the Los Hermanos bandits arrive at the colony and shoot the infected in the fenced yard before entering the premises. Mark's gang finds the city deserted and celebrates their easy victory. Alejandro watches from the shelter, then goes to the school bus in the yard. He starts the bus. Mark hears the sound of the bus and runs out into the yard. Alejandro drives the bus forward, unlocking the gap in the fence and allowing the infected to flood into the colony. Mark's gang sees the herd coming towards them and runs away. Nick Lucian is led by villagers, U.S. borders. Madison, Travis and Alicia are staying in the colony. While Madison and Travis go to the colony in search of Nick, Alicia stays in the yard and notices the school bus stopped. In the town square, Travis and Madison encounter a large herd of infected, among whom there is now Mark and his bandits. Madison and Travis find Alicia on the bus, caring for the dying Alejandro. Madison tells Alejandro she's looking for Nick. Alejandro informs Madison that Nick went to the border because he saw something, but dies before he can mention the camp. Nick, Luciana and the colonists are staying at the border checkpoint. A plume of smoke rises in the distance. Through binoculars, Nick sees the helicopter leaving the refugee camp. Suddenly, an armed survivor appears from an abandoned car and shoots at Luciana, then the entire armed group appears and opens fire on the colonists. Nick Luciana hides behind a booth, but they are captured by one of the attackers. On the bus, Alicia passes Madison, her name was Song. Madison closes Alejandro's eyes, turns his head to the side and inserts the blade, preventing him from coming to life. Armed men separate Nick and Luciana and knock them to the ground.